Welcome in, everybody. Little bit of a bonus Sunday night edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. What is this? It is week 10 of the college football season. I'm pretty sure we have had at least 5, maybe 6 Sundays where we have done the full episode of the Aaron Torres Pod, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sunday. And then a firing happens as we went on air on Sunday morning. Luke, one of our great listeners in the chat, said, Torres, about 45 minutes after you get off air, Hugh Freeze is getting fired. Well, guess what? Hugh Freeze has officially been fired at Auburn. It is not surprising. We talked about it on the show. And so here's the bottom line. This is what we're going to do. We smartly, I think, we waited until the end of Sunday's show to talk Hugh Freeze losing to Kentucky. And basically, the bottom line is we're just going to chop that off the back end. If you're listening on podcasts, we're going to open with Hugh Freeze. We'll get into Tennessee, Oklahoma, the disaster in the ACC. But right now, we're going to spend the next 10, 15 minutes talking Auburn, what went wrong, Hugh Freeze being fired, and frankly, what's next for a very intriguing job, but also a job in the SEC pecking order, I think I know where it stands, and it's not at the top of the list of open jobs. So everybody come on in. It is worth noting, if you're noticing a different background, if you listen to today's show, I am in Vegas. I am here for Monday night. It is opening night of college hoops, Arizona versus Florida, as well as BYU versus Villanova. Those games will be on TNT. Ironically, in an Auburn twist, Bruce Pearl is now a studio host for TNT. So check out Bruce Pearl. I will be there Monday morning. We'll do a live college hoop centric show live from Stadium Swim. I am at Circa. Stadium Swim is about 50 feet and probably about 200 feet down from where I am right now. But tomorrow's college hoops. Tonight, though, the full focus is on Hugh Freeze. So before we get started, I want to thank you. Make sure you're subscribed to Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. We're closing in on 65,000 subscribers. I think we get there by the end of the week. We very much appreciate your support. Make sure you're also listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, it makes sense, right? I got to thank my friends, my partners, the hotel and casino partner of the Aaron Torres Pod, Circa Casino and Circa Sportsbook. So as I said, I am here in Vegas. Tomorrow you will see me out at Stadium Swim, which is about, again, I could throw a football from here, and if there wasn't a window, of course there is, the football would land in the pool at Stadium Swim. Circa is the best place, the only place in Vegas that caters to sports fans specifically. Well, guess what? They have just opened up a brand new casino and sportsbook in Franklin, Kentucky, Mint Kentucky Downs, the Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so this is, if you are on the East Coast, and listen, I know there's a lot going on with YouTube right now and YouTube TV and how do you watch games and all that. Well, guess what? All you got to do is go to Circa Sportsbook, Mint Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. Best place to watch. I said it on Sunday morning show. It was funny. I had a listener say, Torres, every time that you mention Mint Kentucky Downs, it gets a little bit closer to Nashville. What I'm here to tell you is about 35 to 45 minutes from Nashville. I actually know a lot of the people that work at Mint Kentucky Downs live in the state of Tennessee, even though the casino and sportsbook is in Franklin, Kentucky. So if you're in Kentucky and you need a place to watch games, watch whatever, Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. And if you're in Vegas here, make sure to check out the Circa Sportsbook. By the way, you want to be a friend? Tag Torres, tag at Circa Sports on Twitter, on Instagram. Let them know that Torres sent you, that's how you ended up at Circa. We appreciate their support of the Aaron Torres Pod. Like I said, Monday morning we dive into college hoops, but right now it's college football. No more time to waste. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, let's go ahead and talk a little bit of college football, baby. We mentioned it on the show on Sunday morning. Listen, by the way, people ask me, Torres, why don't you just wait to do the show? Listen, I think I'm pretty awesome, but I respect the Shield, okay? I know that once 1 p.m. Eastern time hits, everybody's focused on the NFL. I get it. You have fantasy teams, you got your bets, you got whatever. So we do these Sunday morning shows, and I do think, as I started planning out the season, the one thing I could not have anticipated is the number of jobs that have opened every Sunday, right? You go back to week 2. What was it? Week 3, I guess it was. UCLA, Oklahoma State. From there, we had Sam Pittman at Arkansas. 3 weeks, I guess it was 4 weeks ago now, James Franklin, the stunner. Then it was Billy Napier going into the bye. Then it was Brian Kelly, and now it is Hugh Freeze. Listen, if you listen to today's show, I'm going to spend most of tonight taking your questions. Drop your questions. We'll prioritize super chats. Obviously, you can become a member of the Aaron Torres pod as well. You know, Luke among many is already $4.99 a month. You know, help support the show, whatever. But listen, we spent a lot of time talking about this. As far as why it happened, there was no coming back from Saturday. And I'll take it a step further. I think even going into Saturday, I think that there wasn't really much that Hugh Freeze could do to keep his job beyond next week with the Vanderbilt game. Now, listen, they beat Arkansas last week. If they had beaten Kentucky on Saturday and then beaten Vandy to get to 6-4, yes, going into a bye with 2 games to go, Hugh Freeze had the job. But the bottom line is why Hugh Freeze could not come back. And we said this on the morning show, is that, look, it was not just that Auburn was losing. And it wasn't even just, by the way, that Auburn lost to Kentucky. And it's no disrespect. We got a lot of Kentucky fans that listen to this show. But we know that there is a threshold for schools that you can and cannot lose to, and the manner in which you cannot lose to them. Brian Kelly, once he got bullied by Vandy a few weeks ago, there's no really coming back from that if you're the LSU head coach. You can't get bullied by Vandy and expect to just brush it off. No big deal. We're on to the next one. And it was the same with Auburn. You're at home. Auburn at night is one of the toughest places to play in college football. Well, guess what? They've had 3 straight home games at night. And guess what happened? Lost to Georgia. Yeah, the refereeing was a little bit questionable, but at the end of the day, I'm sorry. You have 10 points there with about, 2 minutes to go in the first half, 0 points in the second half. At some point, it's not just on the refs. You lose to Missouri in overtime, and then you lose to Kentucky in a game in which you score 3 total points. And that's the thing. We talked about it earlier in the day. You can, listen, nobody's perfect. And I'll say this really quick. I think there's this misperception of all these fan bases expect to win every game. It's like, no, I think 99% of fan bases understand you cannot win every game in modern college football. It just does not happen. Even Ohio State's going to get tripped up somewhere. Alabama has a loss. Georgia has a loss, whatever. But at the same time, you cannot lose a million close games and keep asking for forgiveness, right? Hugh Freeze at the podium on Saturday night said, look, we know we're getting close, but I also know that you're tired of hearing that. And I think they had, 7 losses in 2024, so last season. I think 4 were by like 6 points or less. But now to come into this year and to be losing all these close games in the manner that you are, and then I think as importantly, and this is an important part as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that you're losing these games and the offense is the problem. When Hugh Freeze was hired at Auburn, it was to do 2 things. One, the talent level clearly wasn't where it needed to be, right? The talent level was not where it needed to be. Brian Harsin was only there for 2 years, but basically just stopped recruiting. Didn't even try to recruit. Thought, oh, I'm from Boise, I can develop some dudes. No, you can't do that in the SEC. You know who's great at developing? Kirby Smart. You know what he also does? He recruits 5 stars on top of developing everybody else. Give me 1/2 sec. I did not realize my computer's not plugged in. It is about to die. Give me 1/2 sec. Give me 1 second. All right, we are plugged back in. Can everybody hear me okay? Let's keep going. So when Hugh Freeze was hired, there was essentially two things that had to happen at Auburn under Hugh Freeze for it to be considered a success. One, he had to upgrade the talent. Brian Harsin just didn't try to recruit, thought he could develop everybody. And what I was going to say before my computer almost died was that, listen, you know who's really good at developing people? Kirby Smart. He's also developing 5 stars into first-round NFL draft picks, okay? So, listen, the 3-star stuff may be great at Boise State. It's not going to work at Auburn. And so Hugh Freeze, to his credit, top 10 class in 2023, or 2024, excuse me, top 10 class in 2025. He did that part. The other part was he has to solve the offense. He's an offensive head coach. He is a guy that has developed quarterbacks everywhere he's gone, including as recently as 3 years ago at Liberty. Well, fast forward, that was the issue. We used this reference on the show earlier today. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but you have to be able to, listen, when your side of the ball is humming, even if the team isn't winning, you can go to your boss and say, yeah, I know things aren't going well, but I'm doing my part. And I use the example, Brent Venables. Why did people give him the benefit of the doubt coming into this year? He's a defensive guy. They had a top 20 defense last year. The offense was abominable. So you know what he went to his AD and said? My side of the ball is fine. I just picked the wrong OC. Let me go fix this. And he went out and got Ben Arbuckle, and he got John Mateer. Now, we'll see if it works out. Oklahoma beat Tennessee to go to 7-2. I still think they need to go 2-1, maybe 3-0 to make the playoff. But again, Brent Venables went to his AD and could say, look, my side of the ball is fine. I whiffed on the OC. Well, when you're Hugh Freeze and you are the quarterback developer, quarterback whisperer, offensive guy, you can't have an offense that scores 3 points against Kentucky. This, by the way, after scoring 10 points against Georgia, after scoring 10 points against Texas A&M in a game where they basically gifted you a touchdown. 17 points in overtime against Missouri. Oh, by the way, last week you scored 33 points against Arkansas. That looks great on paper until you realize you kicked 6 field goals and had a pick 6. That is insane. So let's see. 6 field goals is 18 points plus a pick 6 is 25 of your 33 points were not offensive. I threw out the stat on the show earlier today. Auburn is 1-5 in SEC play. Auburn is 1-5 in SEC play. That means they have played 6 games total, 12 halves. They have not scored more than 1 offensive touchdown in any of the 12 halves of football that they have played in the SEC so far. You know how hard that is to do? You know what makes it especially hard? They played statistically the number 16 and 15 ranked defenses in the SEC the last 2 weeks. Kentucky this week, Arkansas last week. Those are the 2 worst defenses in the SEC. Well, guess what? When you cannot score, when you score 3 points against a Kentucky team that, again, a Kentucky team that gave up 56 points last week, and you score 3, it's just over. And I think the other thing I mentioned earlier in the day is you went to the backup quarterback, Ashton Daniels, potentially burning his red shirt, by the way. And then on top of that, you went back to Jackson Arnold. And so last year, Peyton Thorne, he's not the answer. You go to Hank Brown. Hank Brown's not the answer. You go back to Peyton Thorne. Oh, by the way, you blame Peyton Thorne for everything. You bring in Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold's a train wreck. You put in Ashton Daniels. He can't move the football. At some point, there's only one common denominator. It's Hugh Freeze. And so, listen, nobody's going to feel bad for a guy that got $15 million to go away, but it was time to move on. I try to be sympathetic about these things. I understand there's a lot of people in a lot of situations, but it was just time. There was no reason to keep going. Listen, I think all these firings are a little bit different. Billy Napier had plenty of time, couldn't beat anybody good. What did he finish? 0-14 against ranked teams away from the swamp. Sorry, dude, not going to get it done. Brian Kelly wasn't the right cultural fit. He's losing to teams that LSU should never lose to. You keep going on down the list. With Hugh Freeze, it had to be last night because you cannot put up 3 points against Kentucky. And really quick, because I want to get to some candidates. The other thing that stood out about that game, everything was lined up for Hugh Freeze to keep his job into next year. Again, 2 elite recruiting classes. We got some comments in the chat this morning. I don't know if we'll have any. I'll look at the comments in half a second. But as far as Hugh Freeze is concerned, remember, 2024 and 2025 classes were elite, okay? And so I just bring it up because the administration wanted to keep him. They wanted him to be the guy. They didn't want to pay $15 million. And after you beat Arkansas last week to improve to 4-4, 1-4 in the SEC, look at the slate. Kentucky at home, that should be 5-4. Mercer, 2 weeks from now, should be a 6th win. And I said it this morning. I believe that Vandy was a very winnable game for them next week because Vandy can't throw the ball. All they want to do is run it. You have one of the best run defenses in college football. And so everything was there for Hugh Freeze to keep the job, I believe, into 2025, 2026, and then reevaluate, and he just couldn't get the job done. And so I know people don't have sympathy for a dude that is going to get $15 million to go away, but it was right there. He couldn't do it. And listen, I said it this morning, we've had Coach Freeze on the show. I haven't talked to him. Frankly, the last time I'll just be totally transparent. Last time I communicated with him, I think everybody knows, but, was diagnosed. I'm just going to say it, like diagnosed with cancer this summer. And I touched base with him, just hoping that he's okay. I have not talked to him since, but I just bring it up because he just looked defeated by the end. And we said it with Billy Napier. I think he was, I don't know. I don't want to speak for another man, but I think in some ways it's a relief. I think he's done. I'll say this, James Franklin wants to coach again. Brian Kelly wants to coach. I don't know if Hugh Freeze is ever going to coach college football again. I do think from having him on this show over the years, especially when he was at Liberty, I think he wanted one more shot at the big time, one more shot at the highest level of college football. It did not work out. I don't think he's going to be back next year coaching, whoever, Tulane or something if John Summerall leaves. So Hugh Freeze is out. That's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and take a couple minutes to talk about who is next. All right. So give me half a second to pause so I can break this up and clip it off later. But who is next at Auburn? Let's discuss it in. All right. So we just talked about Hugh Freeze. You like that production, by the way. So we just talked about Hugh Freeze being out. Everything that went on, why it happened. We discussed it all. If you missed it, go back and check out the full video. I do want to talk about what's next. And what I want to talk about is this. I truly believe, and I said this on Sunday morning, and I believe it in my soul. I believe that this job is going to come down to 2 people most likely to get the job. The first one, I actually think the interim, DJ Durkin, has a realistic shot at getting this job. And I'll say this. I think after Hugh Freeze, after the performance that the offense had on Saturday against one of the worst defenses in the SEC, 3 points. That was part of the reason, because I had buddies reach out to me and say, Torres, you think that he'll get to the bye? And I said, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why. It's because DJ Durkin, I believe in my heart of hearts, DJ Durkin, they want to give him a chance to win this job full time. Okay. Look at, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but let's just call a spade a spade. Look at the people that have got these interim jobs at other schools. Billy Gonzalez, longtime assistant. He's not a candidate for the Florida job. Frank Wilson, super plugged in Louisiana guy. He has been a head coach at UTSA. He's the interim at LSU. I mean, I guess if LSU goes 3-0 and beats Alabama and beats Oklahoma, he could get the job, but he's not really a candidate. Well, I bring it up because I think DJ Durkin is very much a candidate. And you know what I actually think? I actually think John Cohen hopes that DJ Durkin goes 3-0, has success, and is a viable candidate that he can give the job to. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is this, is that those other staffs, they had guys that made sense as a interim head coach, right? You look at Penn State. Penn State could have just named Jim Knowles the interim and seen like, are you good enough to do this job full time? But in some ways, I think Penn State kind of set it up where like, they don't want to give Jim Knowles a job because what if he's awesome and then we got to hire him full time? It's the same at LSU with Blake Baker. Blake Baker's a future head coach. And LSU could have named him the interim, and I just don't think they wanted to. Auburn named DJ Durkin the interim because I think they hope that he installs somebody to get this offense going and that the defense is as good as it's been and he's able to rally the troops and get the job. And so if you're asking me who gets the job, I said it Sunday morning. I think it's going to come down to one of two people. And listen, nothing's guaranteed, but I would guess it comes down to one or two people. DJ Durkin is one. Now, I don't know if he has to go 3-0. For people who don't know Auburn's schedule, Auburn, their final 3 games, they play at Vandy this weekend, by Mercer at home, Alabama at home in the Iron Bowl to end the regular season. I don't know if DJ Durkin has to go 3-0, okay? I don't know if 2-1 gets the job done. Listen, if he beats Alabama, I think it'll certainly be hard to not give him the job. I don't know if he beats Vandy and then beats Mercer and then loses, 24-6 against Bama in the Iron Bowl, if that gets him the job. I just don't know. But what I am saying is they installed DJ Durkin on purpose. They easily could have installed someone that they had no intention of hiring full-time. They did it because I think they hope that DJ Durkin ends up the full-time job guy. He knows the defense. Listen, I think the best way to retain most of these players is for DJ Durkin to be awesome and name him the head coach. Clearly, the defense is bought in to whatever DJ Durkin is selling. And here's the important part. The defense, most of those guys are not draft eligible. Now, Keldrick Falk is, but DeMarcus Riddick, I could just pull up, CFB stats to see like who's on the, who's on the 2 deep right now. But it's like you look at most of their best players. Let's just look really quick. Tackles for loss. Xavier Atkins. He's the transfer from LSU. This is his 2nd year. He's not draft eligible. You look on and on down the list. Amaris Williams, who every time I look up is awesome. Not draft eligible. He's a true sophomore. He will be a potential 1st round, 2nd round pick next year. He's not draft eligible. And so I think that's part of why they hope DJ Durkin is the full-time guy. Because if DJ Durkin's the full-time guy, then that means we're going to retain most of the defensive talent. And then offensively, listen, you got to figure out the quarterback. Ashton Daniels, clearly, if he plays the season out, will not be eligible to return. So does that mean Deuce Knight is the guy next year? Does that mean you sit Ashton Daniels against Mercer? That was discussed on the broadcast on Saturday night. I don't know. But the defense, the best way to retain everybody is DJ Durkin. So to me, I think he has a legitimate chance of keeping this job, unlike the interns at Penn State, at Florida, at LSU, etc. The other big name, and it's not a surprise, it's friend of the Aaron Torres pod, a guy that you just heard on this show last week. It's John Summerall, okay? So John Summerall, I think everybody knows the situation. I think if you don't know the situation, I don't know how you're listening to this show here at this hour at this time, okay? But at the same time, John Summerall is the Tulane head coach, okay? So John Summerall is the Tulane head coach. I know Tulane just lost last weekend. Guess what? Everybody lost last weekend. Alex Golish in South Florida lost going into a bye. Brent Key at Georgia Tech lost last weekend. I mean, it seems like virtually all of these candidates for all of these jobs did lose over the course of the weekend. So I just bring it up because, yes, I know Tulane lost. And by the way, Tulane fans are publicly frustrated on social media. I'm just going to tell it like it is. They are frustrated. It doesn't change the fact that, in my opinion, John Summerall is very much a coaching candidate for that job. For people who are not familiar with John Summerall, why would he be interested? He's in the SEC footprint. He's at Tulane. And then from there, he is from Huntsville, Alabama. And so for people who don't totally know his background, 4 years as a head coach, this is his 4th year. So in 3 full seasons, 3 conference championship game appearances, 2 conference championships at Troy, goes to Tulane. Last year was in the AAC championship game. This year they're sitting at 6-2, and it's worth noting they beat the same Duke team that just won at Clemson. They beat Northwestern, who's 5-3 going into a game against USC this weekend. He knows what he's doing. I think the big question with John Summerall is, is there going to be a better job? Now, I think what's interesting about John Summerall, he is in the state of Louisiana. What is the situation at Tulane? For me, I think there's a couple variables with or what's the situation with LSU? He's in New Orleans. Could he be the lead candidate at LSU? I think there's a couple things. One, with LSU, I don't think people were talking about this enough. The governor of Louisiana literally said, we're not giving out some crazy contract. Now, I know it was political jargon and he's trying to, whatever, impress his constituents, impress his voters. We're not going to spend public taxpayer money, whatever. But at the same time, let's just think about this and let's talk about it as adults. If the governor is not going to approve, and I don't know if he has final say, but listen, the going rate for a good head coach is like 6-7 years and $8 to $10 million a year. That's just what the going rate is. And so again, if Auburn offers John Summerall, say, a 7-year, $70 million contract, or I'm just throwing numbers out, 7 years at $8 million, what is that, $56 million? And LSU's like, yeah, we're going to offer you a 4-year contract that's incentive-based because the governor said so. Sorry, bro. I'm taking the Auburn job. I don't care how good the LSU job is. So that's the first variable. Is the governor actually talking out of his you-know-what, or is there something to that? That's one. The other thing with LSU, I still think, to me, I think politically, I'd be curious, can you really hire the Tulane head coach, even if he's awesome? There's certain political things, and I do think there's a little brother, big brother thing in the state of Louisiana. And I don't know how it would feel for the biggest boosters at LSU that we just poached the Tulane head coach. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. But listen, if I was a betting man, and we're going to get some of your comments in a second, I would guess that, to me, it is either going to be DJ Durkin or John Summerall. Now, if you get past those two, there are some interesting names. Give me a second. I'm going to get some water here. Been traveling all darn day. Or you get past John Summerall, you get past DJ Durkin. Who's realistic? I've seen a lot of James Franklin. James Franklin's an interesting name because I think James Franklin has to figure out what he wants out of his next job. James Franklin, of course, is going to be a coveted man. Listen, a week ago, there was a report that Arkansas, that is the number one priority for the University of Arkansas. I don't know what's going on with that. Virginia Tech, though, you go on social media, Virginia Tech fans think they're getting James Franklin. Is this a job that's more appealing to him? I think what would be interesting about James Franklin, why was he ultimately fired besides what happened this year? It was because ultimately he could never get past Ohio State and Michigan when they were really good. Well, guess what? You got to play Alabama every year, and I think Georgia is not on the schedule every year. So I just bring it up because, I would take James Franklin. I think he would be really good. I guess I just wonder, if you're James Franklin, could you be walking into the same situation? You win 8, 9, 10 games every year, but you can't beat Bama, you can't beat Georgia. At some point, it's going to catch up with you. So James Franklin's an interesting name. The name that I don't believe is a factor, and I heard this one weeks ago, Jimbo Fisher is very actively trying to get back in college football. And Jimbo Fisher's name is going to be linked to this job. I believe he has some sort of farm or ranch or something not far from Auburn, maybe an hour or so. Listen, he's got the right friends in the right places. John Cohen's career rests on this hire, right? John Cohen is the guy that almost got Lane Kiffin, did hire Hugh Freeze. John Cohen knows if I whiff on this hire, I'm not getting another coaching hire to do it right for a third time. And so Jimbo Fisher is not a candidate at this. Jimbo Fisher is going to put his name out there. Jimmy Sexton, my evil enemy, by the way, I don't know how many people know this. Jimmy Sexton sent me a cease and desist for a t-shirt that I was trying to sell. Jimmy Sexton called me, apologized, whatever. But listen, Jimmy Sexton's going to put Jimbo Fisher's name out there, but I don't believe that Jimbo Fisher is a real candidate. There's a difference between a name that is linked to a job and a candidate. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, it was maybe the 2021 season. Bill O'Brien, he was the OC at Alabama, and his name came up as the lead candidate everywhere at LSU when that job opened, at Florida. I'm like, no one's hiring Bill O'Brien. Who is his agent? And I'm just going to say it like it is. I don't really care. I'm in Vegas. It's a Sunday night. I just watched the Bills beat the Chiefs. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Some of these people in the media either have no idea what they're talking about, or two, they're so tied into the agent so they can get the scoop. Listen, go back and look at all these coaching hires. How many of the people that are hired are actually the name that all these insiders put out? Listen, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but like Bruce Feldman, love Bruce Feldman, good to me, like him, this and that. I mean, he just puts out these lists and it's like nothing ever ends up happening. Jimbo Fisher's not a candidate. Okay. I remember, like, I hate to say it, like Bruce was one of the guys that like led the, could Bill O'Brien get this job? He's not getting that job. Stop. And it's the same with Jimbo Fisher. I don't know where Jimbo Fisher coaches. I know he wants to get back in. It ain't going to be at Auburn. So I think it is going to be Durkin. It's going to be Summerall. I think maybe James Franklin, depending on what James Franklin wants. And I think once you get past them, Jimbo Fisher's not an option. Maybe another group of five guy. Maybe Alex Golish, who obviously coached in the SEC, has that kind of experience. I don't know. So yeah, man, crazy day of college football. Those are my candidates. I'll tell you what, this is what we're going to do. For the podcast audience, we're going to cut off here. And for everybody else, we're going to come back. I'm going to take some of your questions from the chat. We'll talk a little bit about this Auburn job, a little bit about everything that's going on next. We'll take a quick break. We'll get a word from our partners, our friends at Collie Puffs, and we will be, give me a second to pull this video up. No producer Matt today. Oh my goodness. What did I just do? Oh my goodness. Producer Matt is off for his birthday. By the way, for people who don't know, producer Matt, an Auburn fan. He got his birthday wish. We all like Freeze, but it was time to go. We'll take a quick break. For the podcast audience, we're going to get to the rest of the show. Oklahoma beating Tennessee, USC beating Nebraska. For everybody else, we'll come back and answer the questions live on YouTube. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Collie Puffs and ColliePuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Collie Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Collie Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Collie Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to ColliePuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliePuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. One bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. ColliePuffs.com gets you 15% off. Collie Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but ColliePuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Collie Puffs. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So let's get to some of the questions in the chat. We will prioritize the super chat. First of all, shout out to my guy here, Kyle. I don't know if he's still with us. This comment is from a few minutes ago. He says, I'm in the airport in Vegas as well, Torres. Well, first of all, Kyle, shout out to you. He says that he is at a baseball tournament for U14s and break the Jed Fish extension. Listen, we'll see about Jed Fish. I mean, listen, Washington back in the top 25. We talked about USC on the show this morning. Washington has a path to the college football playoff. I don't think people realize it. They're currently 6-2, 7-2, something like that. They still have Oregon on the schedule and one of the other playoff contenders. I'd have to look it up, but it's like you go 10-2 and you beat Oregon to end the regular season. You're going to the college football playoff. Washington right now is 6-2. No, I take that back. They actually have a very manageable schedule to get to 9-3 at Wisconsin this week, Purdue, UCLA, and Oregon. So they only leave the West Coast once the rest of the season. They play their final 3 games on the West Coast, 2 in Seattle. I'll tell you this, man, like Oregon low-key kind of has a pretty tough schedule down the stretch. They still have at Iowa, Then they have USC at home, and then at Washington to close the year. I could see them picking up a second loss. All right, couple other things. This made me laugh. So, let's see here. What was it? This one made me laugh. So I said on Twitter, I said after a full day of travel, I'm in Vegas reacting to this. Somebody said, where is it? They said Vegas. This is it. Pat says Vegas to LA is a full day of travel. Listen, in my head, it was. So for people who don't know, and I'm not trying to, everybody works hard. I host Fox Sports Radio until 11 p.m. Pacific. I'm up at 5 a.m. prepping for the podcast, and then I'm on air at 8. So I went straight from the pod to do the radio, to do here. So yeah, Pat also says, by the way, John Gruden at LSU. Listen, I have two very differing thoughts on LSU, on John Gruden. One, John Gruden, we all know, had the very public, what was the exact quote? I would kill to coach in the SEC this summer. But I'll tell you this, Monday mornings, I'm usually working out, and that Barstool show is on, and he's on the Barstool show every Monday. And so I bring it up because every time he's on the show, they ask him about coaching. Like, oh, this coach got fired. What do you think? Oh, that coach got fired. What do you think? And he just feels like every time somebody gets fired, he's like, oh man, it's tough being a coach out there. Feel bad for that guy. And he's a typical coach, like, oh, so-and-so didn't get enough time, blah, 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 blah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, he did this big speech about I would kill to coach in the SEC. When I see him on TV, he doesn't seem like a guy that's itching to get back into coaching. Maybe I'm crazy, but if he wants to coach, there is going to be somewhere that gives him an opportunity, or there should be anyway. David brings up a great point. He says Tulane, Memphis, big this week. Winning coach will get an offer to. Silverfield has done a really good job at Memphis. Silverfield has done a very good job at Memphis. Tulane, it speaks for itself. And it goes to the cliche. Listen, think about the jobs that are open. Florida, LSU, Auburn, Arkansas. We have obviously Penn State, UCLA, Virginia Tech. No one is, there's not enough guys to take all these jobs. And so somebody's going to get these opportunities. I think Summerall, if he doesn't want to be at Tulane, will not be there next year. He'll have an opportunity. And Ryan Silverfield, I know with like Arkansas specifically, and I don't know if it's just a byproduct of the fact that Arkansas lost to Memphis at the Liberty Bowl earlier in the year. Feels like Silverfield is the guy right now. I'll say this. I think Bobby Petrino probably, his window, I think, closed with the loss on Saturday to Mississippi State. Like, I get it. At some point, it's a tough job, but at some point you got to win some game. And I think Bobby Petrino, correct me if I'm wrong, 0-4, 0-5, something like that since he took over the head coaching job. So we'll see what happens there. Saw another good comment in the chat here I want to get to right now. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. Robert asked me, what's my opinion about Jeff Brom's future? All right, so Jeff Brom, the head coach at Louisville. So it's an interesting coaching cycle because of this. Jeff Brom at Louisville. Brent Key at Georgia Tech. A couple other guys. What do they all have in common? These are hot coaching candidates that are all at their alma maters, okay? What I can tell you about Jeff Brom, I know this for a fact. Jeff Brom, he is desired by some of these big jobs. Now, what I don't know is, like I don't think his name is just getting thrown up against the wall. Like when you see Jimbo Fisher's name tied to certain jobs, you're like, oh, that's an agent pulling crap behind the scenes. Like when Jeff Brom's name is tied to Florida and Penn State or whatever, like those are places that legitimately want Jeff Brom. Now, a couple things. One, I just think, let me put it this way. If he stays at Louisville in this cycle, he might just retire there. But I think he's going to have opportunities. And I think the big question is, what does he want? I think the other big question is, what if Louisville wins the ACC, right? We're talking a lot about Lane Kiffin. Well, if Lane Kiffin is in the first round of the college football playoff, you can't hire him until basically Christmas. Well, it's the same with Jeff Brom. Remember, the early signing period is in December of this year. The portal doesn't open until January 1st. So in theory, you can wait until the first round of the college football playoff. And I think that to me is what's going to be interesting, right? Regular season ends Thanksgiving weekend. We have conference championship games on the first weekend in December. If we get to like the middle to the end of that first week after conference championship games and Florida's still open, LSU still open, Penn State's still open, Auburn, whatever, it means that they're potentially waiting for somebody in the playoff. Now, if you're waiting for somebody in the playoff, you better be damn sure. This is Torres After Dark right now. I'm going to swear a little bit. You better be damn sure. You better be effing sure that you're going to be able to get your guy. You cannot be waiting until Christmas to try and hire a guy if you don't think you're going to get him. I know this is like such a cop-out answer. If I had to guess, I do think that Jeff Brom is back at Louisville next year. I don't think it is a certainty, though, because man, oh man, is he going to be coveted. David says, John Summerall is rock solid. Yeah, he is, man. Listen, we had him on the show, loved him, haven't talked to him, not my business, whatever. Lonnie, this is good. He said Torres had Freeze on before Freeze got the Auburn job. Now he has Summerall on. Is it a hint? Listen, I can't. All I'll say is John Summerall, when we had him on last week, he said, my only focus is going 1-0, no distractions during the season. He did not hint to me on the air, off the air, whatever, that he's focused on anything other than Tulane getting to the college football playoff. So listen, this is why you have an agent. This is why you have whatever. But I promise you, John Summerall has not hinted to me that he prefers any job over the other. I'm just kind of playing, kind of putting dots together. I just think LSU is a weird spot right now. I need more clarification on the interim AD is reportedly making the hire. Who knows what's going on with that? New president coming in, all of that. And then I think more importantly, is the governor going to let LSU give out an 8-year, $80 million contract? Because if they're not, then I don't really care. If you're John Summerall, again, if you can get an 8-year, $80 million contract from Auburn or whatever, or you can get a 3-year incentive-based deal from LSU because the governor doesn't want to give out crazy contracts, I'm taking Auburn. So it's just interesting to think about. Let's see here. Oh, man. Let's see here. Luke and Paul are just talking up this chat. Lonnie did say this. Xavier Atkins is amazing. He really – that Auburn game or that Arkansas game, I mean, he basically single-handedly won that game. Unbelievable. Forrest goes back. For people just joining us, I said that I believe Auburn will come down to one of two people. If DJ Durkin – I believe in my heart of hearts, and I sincerely mean this. I believe that Auburn wants DJ Durkin to work. I believe that in a perfect world, he goes 3-0, and it's no question. I think in a non-perfect world, he goes 2-1. The final 3 games are Mercer, Vandy this weekend, and then Alabama to end the season. And I think in a perfect world, he goes 2-1, and you hope that he does enough to justify getting the job. And as Forrest says, the defense is so good, and all of those guys are coming back next year. Not all of them, because Keldrick Falk is not. But for the most part, most of those guys are coming back next year. If you can get those guys back with DJ Durkin, and you put in a real OC, and by the way, how fitting is it, Hugh Freeze and Billy Napier, both of them. And I know Hugh Freeze, I'm not calling plays, whatever. Okay, whatever, dude. I'm sorry. Hugh Freeze and Billy Napier. I heard this about Billy Napier right before he got fired. I thought it was accurate. Basically, Billy Napier was much more, he was being paid to be a head coach, but he wanted to be an OC, and that's what was his downfall. Same with Hugh Freeze, man. I don't know, man. It's just, it didn't have to be this way for Hugh Freeze, but it is. Let's get to a couple more questions. Any other comments or chats? Let's take a look here. Okay, somebody asked about Brian. So Nuke asks, what do you think about Brian Kelly at Penn State? And then Paul follows up by saying, is Brian Kelly going to drop an Amish accent at Penn State? Listen, I think Brian Kelly wants to coach again. I think that's kind of a tough sell for Penn State, isn't it? You get off of James Franklin for winning 10, 11 games. Now you're going to bring in a guy from the SEC that couldn't win games that mattered in the SEC. And I just think with Brian Kelly, he's just so unlikable. And if he's that unlikable and you're Penn State, do you want to bring in a guy that now, like if you're Michigan State and you fire Jonathan Smith and you need a new head coach, you might have no choice but to bring in a Brian Kelly. If you're Wisconsin, you're pretty far down the totem pole. But if you're Penn State, I hope you can get some better candidates than that. I'll say this about Penn State. I really get the sense that Brian Hartline, the OC at Ohio State, is going to get that job. And it didn't hurt that Ohio State pretty much moved the ball at will against Penn State on Saturday. Now, he ain't bringing Brian Hartline ain't bringing Jeremiah Smith with him. But I actually think Penn State is going to end up with Brian Hartline. And we talked about it on last Friday's show. I get where people would question that and say that's kind of a weird thing. All I'll say is pretty straightforward. You think about the fact that with Brian Hartline, with the way that offense has been the last decade, how refreshing that would be. And I think the other thing is he could potentially bring guys with him from Ohio State, that second tier of guys that is not playing. Just something to think about. Couple quick things before we get out of here. One, I am at Circa Sportsbook. As if you're watching now, we're at Circa. So right there is Stadium Swim. Let me see if I can even move the this is the room that I'm in. I don't know if I can do this without messing everything up. But you could see right there, that's Stadium Swim. That is where everybody hangs out. I will be doing the show there on Monday morning. We're going to do a lot of college hoops. College hoops opens on Monday in Vegas. So we appreciate your support and all of that. Before we get out of here, do have a couple we'll get to a couple more questions. But before we do, I think it is worth acknowledging and talking about our friends and the official ticketing partner of the Aaron Torres pod, SeatGeek and the SeatGeek app. Okay, so it's that time of year. College football's running into college basketball. Major League playoffs are done, but maybe you want to go to an NFL game, all of that. If you need tickets to anything, concerts, shows, whatever. I met a guy in the lobby. He's going to the Wizard of Oz at the Sphere later tonight. Well, if you need tickets to the Wizard of Oz, to the Backstreet Boys, got a buddy who used the SeatGeek promo there. You need to go to SeatGeek, America's #1 ticketing app. Take care of customers. Every ticket rated 1 through 10. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means don't. But here's the best part. If you download the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres on any ticket, it could be a college basketball game, college football game, whatever, you get, how about this? You get $20 off your first purchase. $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com. Promo code Torres. Couple other questions. We are going to go ahead and get out of here. By the way, again, I appreciate Kyle listening at the Vegas airport. That's awesome. Is Beamer off to Virginia Tech? I'll say this. I saw the news that Frank Beamer fired his OC. If you're planning on leaving in a couple weeks to go to Virginia Tech, are you firing the OC going into week 10? I don't know. Mike Shula, former Alabama head coach. Mike Shula, I don't know the guy, but just looks old. Like, not the, when I think offensive guru, I think Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, younger guy, whatever. Can't say that I think Mike Shula, he has been fired. Got people arguing in the chat. We don't need people arguing in the chat. Let's get to a couple more questions. Any super chats we will prioritize. Steve-O says, will Cliff Kingsbury come back to college? I listen, it seems like Arkansas fans, that's kind of the guy that they've kind of got their eye on now. If James Franklin doesn't go to Virginia Tech, if James Franklin does go to Virginia Tech or Auburn, I would think if I was Cliff Kingsbury, being an OC in the NFL seems like a pretty badass job. You get paid probably $4 or $5 million a year. Maybe it's a little bit less. Maybe it's 2.5, 3, but he's not married. He doesn't have kids, whatever. He's got probably 50, 60, $70 million in the bank, and he has no responsibility that comes with being the head coach. No media availability in college, no recruiting, no portal, no NIL, whatever. I don't know. If I was him, I'd be like, dude, this is sweet. Now, the thing with the Washington Commanders, now I know they're getting set to play like right now on Sunday Night Football. They may have already kicked off. But my whole thing is, that team's starting to regress. And obviously Jaden Daniels is banged up. and he's a little bit skinny, and you wonder long-term, what is his prognosis? And so I guess in theory, if you're worried that Jaden Daniels long-term maybe can't stay healthy, or what's the answer big picture, then maybe it does make sense to go on. But yeah, to me, I cannot imagine that Cliff Kingsbury is rushing to get back to college football, but that is just speculation on my part. I don't know. Couple more, we'll get out of here. College hoops, by the way, starts on Monday, season opener. I'm in Vegas for all of the games. So David asks, Torres, with due respect, how do you know if Derek Nix isn't a good OC? He had no chance. None. Austin was a great OC at Ole Miss before Freeze was hired, won 10 games back to back. I don't think I said that they have no play callers on the staff. What I just said was we won't know because Hugh Freeze wouldn't give up the play calling. So yeah. Let's see here. We got a couple more. We'll get out of here. Owl Shadow says, I emailed Hunter Yurachek and asked him to call Cliff. Here's my question, Owl Shadow. Are we sure that Hunter Yurachek has final say on who actually gets hired? I don't know if he does. A couple more, we'll get out of here. A lot of Cliff Kingsbury talk. Oh, Eddie. You're dead to me, Eddie. Says, I use the KSR SeatGeek promo. Screw you, man. Eddie, come on, man. You got me as your thumbnail. Now you're going to use promo code Torres to get $20 off. That's what you got to do. I invented SeatGeek, okay? Listen, the SeatGeek promo started with Torres. Let's never forget that. All right. Tell you what, Peanut Butter Posse says Auburn folks need to accept they're a mid-tier SEC job. Here's the thing, though. It's 2025. Being a mid-tier SEC job isn't the worst thing. Vandy is a low-tier SEC job. They could make the playoff. I'll be honest. You know who I think is a mid-tier? Ole Miss is a mid-tier to low-tier SEC job. They could make the playoff. I think more than ever in this next era of college football, it's getting the right coach and then retaining him. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, Kurt Cignetti, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Like, it's about finding the right guy and retaining him. That's all it's about. And I do think it's kind of interesting. And I do think it's interesting because to me, what stands out about this era, that's what it's all about. Now, how do you know? Now, I'll just say this, is that I do think, like, Kiffin's a little bit different because he's still, I think, in his late 40s. Going and getting the dude that's 57 and hiring the big name, I think that era, I wouldn't do it, right? Brian Kelly, big name, didn't work out. Jimbo Fisher, big name, didn't work out. Texas A&M obviously tried to hire Mark Stoops. Mike Elko, I think we can all agree, probably working out better than Mark Stoops would have, okay? So I just bring it up to say, like, go get the young guy that is fully bought in on NIL and this and that, and full speed ahead. Clark Lee, full speed ahead. Kenny Dillingham, full speed ahead. I think if go get the young guy, but I do think it doesn't really matter in my opinion. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter. I think the key thing is hiring the right guy and retaining him. David asks, have you ever been to Ole Miss in Oxford? I actually have been. I went many years ago now. It was like 2012, 2013. Jeremiah Masoli was the Ole Miss quarterback. So, you could peg that down to a year or two. Beautiful city. The Grove was the real deal. I'll be honest, I was there when they weren't good, so I can only imagine what it's like now. Have not been back since. What I remember, first of all, the food was amazing. The Grove was amazing. Small town. I will say, if you're Lane Kiffin and you don't want to be in a fishbowl, that's probably not the place for you. But the counter to that is that, it is a beautiful town. I had a blast. All right, I'll tell you what. I've done since 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern last night. Did 3 hours of radio, an hour and a half this morning, and we just did another hour. And I'm doing 2 shows tomorrow. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, what are you doing? Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, make sure to subscribe. But also make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are closing in on 65,000 subscribers. The chat is humming. We are so grateful for all of you. And yeah, Tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. As I said, I will be back tomorrow morning here in Vegas. It is 5:22 Pacific time, 8:22 Eastern. I will be back noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific to preview the college basketball season. There is a doubleheader in Vegas. I am here for that and cannot wait to discuss it all with you tomorrow. I'll make my season picks in college hoops. And by the way, if there's any fallout from this college basketball stuff, I will also obviously be sure to do that as well. But I'll tell you what, it's 5:22. I got up about 12 hours ago to prep the pod, the original one. I've not had a real meal yet. So I'm going to go find a hamburger or a hot dog or something to eat because I am going to get out of here. I'm going to go ahead and get going. Pat says, are you getting up for the college basketball game at 8 a.m. tomorrow? I know my guys at the Field 68 are doing some stuff for opening day. I am not going to be up that early. I am in Vegas. There is a doubleheader in Vegas. Florida, the defending champs, plays Arizona. And then on top of that, BYU, the AJ DeBonsa debut against Villanova. Remember, those games are on TNT. Those are regular season games. They count. So I'm in Vegas for those. We'll do a pregame show around noon Eastern, and then I'll probably do a recap show, 11 p.m. Eastern or so when those games end. So that's what I'm here for. I know the Field of 68 is broadcasting some games. And by the way, we're going to talk about everything. So I know Arkansas plays tomorrow, UConn plays tomorrow, all of that. But we're going to get out of here. Shout out to Torrent Craig, Rachel, who hates my voice, JJ Reddick, UF had unblocked me. I will be back